assume what would escalate the war drastically, the way that Benjamin Netanyahu wants it. Here is the solution suggested by Naftali Bennett.
Reality is that Israel is a democracy, is the best ally America can have.
And NATO's not helping.
Exactly. Imagine for a moment we don't exist, okay? And you've got the Middle East festering with jihadists and Al-Qaeda type and ISIS and Hezbollah. We know what'll happen. They're going to hit the Twin Towers, 9/11.
You were in New York when it
I was
happened.
in Manhattan when it happened. I saw those buildings on fire. That's what happens when you say the Middle East isn't our problem, we don't care. So the radical Islamists will come to the big Satan, to Manhattan, to California, to America, but with nuclear ballistic missiles. And by having Israel, you do not need to send hundreds of thousands of boots on the ground.
Yeah, you know what he's arguing. He's basically threatening the United States with a false flag operation again in the United States. Your understanding of that, Paul, go ahead.
Yeah, it was fear-mongering about, you see, as far as I can tell, Nima, the so-called Muslim radicals, these are all creation of CIA. We created them in order to destabilize the Soviet Union and Afghanistan. And Bin Laden was our guy. He was the head of that CIA operation against the Soviets. And it's clear as day he had nothing whatsoever to do with 9/11. No Muslims had anything to do with 9/11. It was an inside job by the American neoconservatives to create the new Pearl Harbor that they said they needed to invade the Middle East and destroy the countries in the way of Greater Israel. So that's what 9/11 was about. And the war on terror is a hoax. There wasn't any terror. It was a war to get rid of Gaddafi, Saddam Hussein, Assad for Greater Israel. Just like the current war is to get rid of Iran for Greater Israel. Some people blame Israel for it. I think that is not likely, but they did know about it because they had Mossad agents on site with the cameras set up to film when the buildings came down. So they knew in advance, which is logical because the American neoconservatives, they're overwhelmingly Jewish, and half of them, I think, are joint Israeli-American citizens. So they certainly would have told the Israelis. Furthermore, some firm had to have wired those buildings. It's now been proven conclusively that Building 7 was wired. There's no other way it could have come down at free fall acceleration. And the other two buildings, they also came down at essentially free fall acceleration into their own footprint. So
we call it in civil engineering, we call it controlled demolition. And it means that you destroy the building the way that it doesn't damage the surrounding buildings.
That's right. I witnessed one years ago as an engineering student. So when I saw it, I said, that's controlled demolition. Who wired the buildings? There are not many companies. And as far as I know, there has never been buildings as tall as the two towers that were brought down by controlled demolition. Now this was a risk. They don't usually bring down 100 and 104-story buildings because they're not any, a handful in the world maybe. So it required a lot of competence and also a lot of confidence that they could pull this off. It's never happened before. Well, where did that firm come from? There's not many. And notice that nobody on the commission to investigate 9/11 called in the demolition companies. There can't be more than a handful and say, hey, what can you tell us about this? Is this a controlled demolition? Were you the one who wired the buildings? Who wired it? And I think it was probably an Israeli firm. Because, the buildings were under the control of the Jew, Silverstein. And so they had access. And the security system was also under control of the neoconservatives. So, but still, again, you see, it's hard to explain. I mean, Israel doesn't have skyscrapers that they have to bring down in order to build something else. And there's no experience with bringing down buildings like that. I don't think there's even any experience bringing down buildings as tall as Building 7. But we do know for a fact, it's not debatable, that a building like Building 7 of the World Trade Center cannot fall at free fall acceleration into its own footprint unless it's a controlled demolition. Because what controlled demolition means is each floor has to become unglued just prior to the floor above it hitting. Because even if the floor above has enough mass and force to crush the floor, it takes some time, whether it's a second or a split second. But the end result is it's not free fall acceleration. Well, that was, and that's not debatable. So we know it was wired. And if it was wired, then the other two are likely to have been wired. So none of these questions were ever addressed. And of course, the Mossad agents that were picked up filming it, they were all set up, so they had to know. They were kept a couple of months and never questioned by the commission and sent back. The war on terror was an orchestration created to send America to war for Greater Israel. And they hid it by calling it a war on terror. But the terrorists are CIA organized. And so we were warring on the people we then used to overthrow Gaddafi. And the same people we sent to Syria to try to overthrow Assad. And these were the terrorists organized by the CIA that we were having a war on. And of course, no one ever exposed it. The media wouldn't say a word. Nobody in the Congress would dare open their mouth. And those who did, for example, the scientists at the Brigham Young University who collected the dust from the World Trade Center and proved beyond all doubt that it had reacted and unreacted nanothermite in it. Well, nanothermite's what they use to bring down the buildings. And so he gets fired off from the university. And that then was a message to all the other physicists: don't say a word. You'll lose all federal funding. Your physics department will be shut down. Your career will end. And the administrations knew that they couldn't lose the federal money, so everybody shut up. The same thing with high-rise architects and structural engineers. Eventually, Richard Gage had 3,000 of them who said, this can't possibly have happened according to the narrative. These buildings were intentionally brought down. It took him years to get that, because if you are a structural engineer or a high-rise architect and you take a position like that, most of your clients are going to think, oh, you're on the terrorist side. You're taking up for the terrorists. We're not going to do business with you. And your business fails. So I think the government knew that the people who would see through this would silence themselves, because as physicists, they would lose their position in the universities. And they made sure the first guy that said anything, he was finished. And they also knew that architects and engineers, they couldn't say anything without losing clients, because people would say, you're on the terrorist side. And they knew too that if you were in journalism, you'd say anything, you'd be branded and demonized or ignored, because everybody would be afraid. So even people who came up and proved a case, nobody would say anything about it, because they'll get us too. They're not just going to get him. They'll get anybody who takes it up. So that's the way it works. The same thing worked with the assassination of John Kennedy, with Robert Kennedy. It was easy to see through these, but it was too high a cost. And so everybody just shut up. That's a real problem, because even people who know the truth can't be effective, because it's too costly for anybody to acknowledge it. And of course, the situation's worse if everybody is too unrealistic to be realistic.